You already know. That is the thing nobody is saying to you, and the thing you most need to hear. You already know. Not suspecting, not wondering, not occasionally concerned. You know. Somewhere underneath the feelings and the history and the comfort of having someone and the terror of starting over, you know that God has been showing you something about this person that you have been choosing not to see. And you are watching this video because that knowing will not leave you alone. I want to talk to that knowing, not to your feelings, not to the version of this relationship you are hoping it becomes, to the quiet, persistent voice underneath all of that which has been trying to get your attention for longer than you want to admit. Because here is what I have learned about the way God warns us about people. He is never loud about it. He does not send lightning. He does not write on walls. He speaks through a gentle, consistent withdrawal of peace. Every time you move closer to someone, he is trying to move you away from. Through a heaviness after conversations that should leave you feeling full. Through a pattern of compromise in your relationship with him that started around the same time this relationship started. Through a feeling you keep explaining away because the alternative explanation requires a decision you are not ready to make. You have been explaining it away for a while now, and it is costing you more than you realize. Chapter 1. You have been negotiating with what God already showed you. God didn't hide this from you. He showed you something early, maybe in the first few weeks, maybe in a specific moment that made you pause long enough to feel the warning before you talked yourself back into moving forward. A flash of who this person really is underneath the version they present to you. A behavior that contradicted everything they had told you about themselves. A moment where your spirit said this is not right, and your heart said, but I don't want it to be wrong. And you chose your heart. I did this once with someone I was convinced God had sent me. The signs were there from the beginning. A pattern of dishonesty so subtle I could explain each individual instance away. An influence on my prayer life that I noticed but attributed to the busyness of a new relationship. A persistent unease that I medicated with the excitement of being chosen by someone I found impressive. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself nobody is perfect. I told myself God wouldn't have brought this person into my life if they weren't meant to be there. God didn't bring them. I did. And the difference between those two things became devastatingly clear 18 months later, when the relationship ended in a way that took 2 years to recover from. Proverbs 14 verse 12 says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to destruction. The way that appears right is the dangerous one. The obvious wrong turns are easy to avoid. It is the turns that feel right while something in your spirit quietly resists them that require the most discernment." You are not being paranoid. You are being warned. And there is a difference. Chapter 2. Your relationship with God changed when this person arrived. This is the clearest sign, and the one you have worked hardest to ignore. Think about your prayer life before this relationship. Your hunger for God, the ease with which you accessed His presence, the clarity you had about your purpose and your direction. Now, think about those same things today. Not dramatically different, maybe, just quietly diminished, a degree cooler, a little harder to access, a little easier to postpone. That cooling did not happen by accident. I remember a specific evening, about 4 months into a relationship that I knew in my spirit was wrong. I sat down to pray and felt nothing. Not the comfortable, familiar silence of waiting on God, a flatness. Like a phone call where the line is connected but nobody is speaking. I had felt that flatness before in dry seasons. But this was different. This was directional. Something about where I was spending my emotional energy was creating static between me and God, and I already knew what the something was. I just wasn't ready to do anything about it yet. That flatness lasted the entire length of the relationship, and lifted within 2 weeks of it ending. 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14 says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers." But the unequal yoke is not only about whether someone attends church, it is about spiritual direction. 2 people can both call themselves Christians and still be pulling in fundamentally opposite spiritual directions. One person moving toward God. One person comfortable at exactly the distance from God they are currently at. And the yoke between them does not pull the comfortable person forward, it pulls the hungry person back. Ask yourself honestly, are you closer to God today than you were before this relationship started? If the answer is no, that answer is not neutral information. That answer is God's clearest warning that something about this arrangement is working against your most important relationship. And I know that is hard to hear. I know because I needed someone to say it to me and nobody did until it was too late to hear it without paying a price first. You are hearing it now, before the price gets any higher. Chapter 3. You have started shrinking. Not physically, spiritually, vocationally, in the specific ways that matter most. The dreams you talked about less because this person's response to them was never quite what you needed it to be. The convictions you loosened because maintaining them created friction in the relationship. The version of yourself you stopped showing up as because somewhere along the way you learned that the full version of you was too much for this person to consistently celebrate. And the frightening thing is you adjusted so gradually you barely noticed it happening. There was no single moment where you decided to become smaller. Just 100 tiny decisions to avoid the friction of being fully yourself. And now you are standing in a relationship, holding a reduced version of who God made you and calling it compromise when it is actually loss. I remember sitting with a friend who had been in a relationship for 3 years and asking her when she had last worked on the things she believed God called her to. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said she hadn't thought about it in months. The relationship had become so consuming and so complicated that her purpose had quietly moved from the center of her life to the edges of it without her noticing when the shift happened. That is not love. Love does not require you to become smaller to sustain it. Ephesians 5 describes a love that nourishes and cherishes, that causes growth, not diminishment. If the person you are with consistently makes you feel like less rather than more, the relationship is not reflecting the love God designed. It is reflecting something else entirely, dressed in the language of love. Chapter 4. You are staying for the wrong reasons. Let me tell you what staying for the wrong reasons actually looks like from the inside. It looks like scrolling through old messages to remind yourself why you fell for them when the present gives you nothing to hold on to. It looks like rehearsing their good qualities to people who ask how things are going, because the honest answer is too complicated and too revealing. It looks like praying for God to change them, instead of asking God what He is trying to change in you through the discomfort of this season. It looks like knowing and staying anyway. Every single day, choosing the familiar wrong thing over the unfamiliar obedience. That is not commitment. That is fear wearing commitment's clothes. Because you are not staying because you have peace about this relationship. You have already established that the peace left a while ago. You are staying because you are afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of having wasted time on something that didn't work. Afraid of the conversation. Afraid of what people will say. Afraid that nothing better is coming and this imperfect thing is better than the uncertainty of nothing. That fear is not a reason to stay, it is a reason to pray. Because what you are really saying, when you stay out of fear, is that you trust your fear more than you trust God. You trust the story your anxiety is telling you about your future, more than you trust the God who holds your future, and has already declared in Jeremiah 29 verse 11 that His plans for you are good, that they lead somewhere worth going, that the future He has prepared for you is worth the discomfort of walking away from what He has been warning you about. I stayed in the wrong relationship 2 months longer than I should have because I had convinced myself that the timing wasn't right to leave. There is never a right time. There is only obedience and the peace that follows it, or continued disobedience and the slow erosion that follows that. The question is never, is this the right time? The question is always, do I trust God enough to obey what He has already shown me? Chapter 5. What God is actually offering you. Nobody tells you this part, and it is the part that changes everything. God's warning about this person is not the end of your story. It is the protection of it. He is not removing something from your hands to leave them empty. He is removing something from your hands because what He intends to place in them cannot fit while you are holding on to this. The warning is not punishment, it is preparation. And what He is preparing you for is something this relationship was never equipped to carry you toward. He is protecting something in you that this relationship is not capable of sustaining. He is guarding a future that requires you to be whole in ways this relationship is slowly making harder. And he is offering you something in exchange for your obedience that your feelings cannot currently imagine. Not just a better relationship eventually, a better version of yourself. The version that exists on the other side of choosing God's voice over your fear. The version that walked away from the wrong thing and discovered in the walking away that God was faithful in exactly the way he promised to be. Ruth walked away from everything familiar to follow what she believed God was doing. And what God had waiting for her on the other side of that obedience was beyond anything she could have constructed for herself. Ruth 1. She could not see Boaz from where she was standing. She could only see the road away from what was familiar, and she walked it anyway. You cannot see what God has on the other side of this obedience from where you are currently standing. You can only see the road. And the road requires a decision that your feelings will resist and your spirit already knows is right. Chapter 6. The Way Forward. You came to this video knowing something. You are leaving it still knowing it. The difference is that now you have fewer places to hide from what you know. The rationalizations are a little harder to sustain. The explaining away is a little more expensive than it was before you started watching. God is not angry with you for where you are. He is not finished with you because of the time you spent in the wrong place. He is simply and persistently and lovingly warning you, the way he has been warning you, for longer than you want to admit. The question was never whether he was speaking. The question is whether today is the day you finally decide to listen. Write, "I choose God's voice" in the comments, if this reached the place in you that needed to hear it. Then share this with someone you love who has been staying somewhere God has been warning them to leave.